Imagine you open your banking app one morning, and for the first time in your adult life, the number on the screen reads five figures $10,000. Maybe it took you 2 years, maybe three. Maybe you worked weekends for it, skipped vacations, made quiet sacrifices that nobody around you noticed or acknowledged. And now it's there, sitting in your account, real. For a moment, you feel something that's genuinely rare in personal finance. You feel ahead. Most people think reaching this point means they've finally broken the cycle, that they've crossed some invisible line between financial struggle and financial stability. But here's what the data, the psychology, and the quiet stories of thousands of people actually suggest. For many people, this is exactly where they start falling behind again. Not dramatically, not all at once, quietly. Here's what typically happens in the weeks after someone reaches a savings milestone like this. They don't blow it all at once. That would be obvious, easy to catch. Instead, something far more subtle begins. The spending gets a little more relaxed. There's a dinner with friends they'd normally hesitate on, but this time they say yes because, well, they have money now. There's a clothing purchase they've been delaying, and suddenly it feels reasonable to finally get it. There's a weekend trip, a new phone that's a couple years overdue, a gym membership upgrade. Each individual decision seems perfectly justified because, individually, it is. None of these things is irrational on its own. But over the next 6 to 8 months, something quietly devastating has happened. That $10,000? It's back down to $4,000 or $2,000, or it's just gone. And the person sitting there doesn't understand how. They didn't make one big mistake. They didn't lose money on anything dramatic. They just spent it in small, comfortable, socially acceptable increments. This is called lifestyle creep, and it is one of the most common and least discussed financial traps that exists. Lifestyle creep doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel like self-destruction. It feels like finally living. And that feeling is exactly what makes it so effective at keeping people financially stuck. There's also a second form this mistake takes, and it's even quieter. Some people don't spend the money extravagantly. They just leave it sitting in a standard checking account, earning nothing, easily accessible, mentally tagged as available. And over time, that accessibility becomes erosion. Small withdrawals here, a car repair there, an impulsive online purchase at midnight. Life finds ways to pull money that has no structure or purpose assigned to it. Money without direction doesn't stay still. It moves toward whatever's in front of it. To understand why this happens, we need to talk about how the human brain actually relates to money. For the most part of your time you were building toward that savings milestone, your brain was operating in a state of scarcity. You were restraining, watching numbers, saying no, and that requires mental energy, a resource that behavioral economists call cognitive load. Scarcity mindset, while uncomfortable, functions like a guardrail. It keeps spending behavior in check because the cost of every decision feels real and immediate. But once you hit the milestone, once there's money in the account, the brain does something predictable and deeply human. It rewards itself. This isn't weakness, this is neuroscience. The brain's reward circuitry interprets the end of a long effort as a signal that the restriction phase is over. Psychologists refer to this as goal completion relaxation, the unconscious permission we give ourselves to loosen behavioral rules once a goal has been achieved. Think about how it mirrors other areas of life. Someone diets strictly for weeks, loses the weight they wanted, and then allows themselves just a few indulgences to celebrate. A student finishes a difficult semester and doesn't open a book for a month. A person quits smoking for 90 days and has just one at a party. The same mechanism governs money. Reaching $10,000 in savings felt like the goal, so the brain behaves as if the task is complete. But in reality, that milestone wasn't the finish line. It was the starting line for the next phase of building. There's also a second psychological dynamic at work. The pain of paying diminishes when accounts look full. Research by behavioral economist Richard Thaler shows that humans practice something called mental accounting. We categorize money differently based on where it sits and how we mentally label it. When an account looks abundant, individual withdrawals from it feel psychologically smaller. Spending $200 when you have $10,000 doesn't register the same as spending $200 when you have $400. The number in the account changes how spending feels, even though the dollar is worth exactly the same. This is not a character flaw. It is not a discipline problem. It is just how human beings process value and safety. Understanding it is the first step to working around it. So the question becomes, if willpower alone isn't enough, and the research suggests it rarely is, what actually works? The answer is structure. A simple, intentional framework that makes the right financial behavior the default rather than a constant act of discipline. Here are 5 steps worth considering. Step 1. Separate your money physically. The single most effective thing you can do when you reach a savings milestone is move money out of your checking account and into a separate, dedicated account, ideally one that isn't linked to your debit card and isn't checked daily. The checking account is designed for spending. Anything that sits there becomes psychologically fair game. A high-yield savings account or a brokerage account creates both a physical and mental barrier. The benefit over time, you stop mentally including that money in your available balance. It stops existing as a spending resource and starts existing as a building resource. Step 2. Give every portion of money a specific job. Vague savings don't survive contact with life. Label the money you have. This could look like $3,000 designated as an emergency fund, untouched, non-negotiable, $4,000 marked for long-term investment, $2,000 assigned to a specific upcoming goal, $1,000 kept as a liquid buffer for daily life. When money has a defined purpose, spending it on something unrelated requires a conscious act of overriding that label. That friction, as small as it seems, is enough to interrupt most impulsive financial decisions. Step 3. Build the emergency fund as a non-optional foundation. 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses, sitting in a separate account, never touched unless a genuine emergency occurs. This is not glamorous. It does not grow rapidly, but it serves a function that most people underestimate. It removes financial anxiety from your daily decision-making. When you know you can survive a job loss or a medical expense, your relationship with money becomes calmer, and calmer minds make better financial decisions. Step 4. Automate the investing portion before you can spend it. Set up an automatic transfer the day after your paycheck arrives that moves a fixed amount into an investment account, an index fund, a retirement account, something long-term. The actual amount matters less than the habit. Even $100 a month automated is more powerful than $500 moved manually on a good month because you remembered and felt motivated. Automation removes the decision entirely, and decisions are where most financial plans collapse. Step 5. Designate a small, guilt-free spending fund. This is important and often overlooked. Completely restricting yourself creates psychological pressure that eventually results in overcorrection. Give yourself permission, with a defined, small budget, to spend freely within that boundary. A dinner, a purchase you want, a trip. But it comes from that account only. When it's gone until next month. This creates sustainable behavior rather than cycles of restriction and release. Most financial content talks about motivation, about mindset, about wanting it badly enough. And while mindset matters at the beginning, it gets you to the milestone. Motivation is an unreliable long-term resource. It fluctuates with mood, stress, season, and circumstance. Systems don't. A system doesn't ask how you're feeling today. It doesn't care that you're tired or that it's your birthday or that the market looks uncertain. It runs, quietly, in the background, the same way a direct deposit hits your account whether you think about it or not. The most financially stable people are not the most disciplined people in the room. They are often the people who made their financial structure boring on purpose, set it up once correctly, and then let it run. Discipline is a bridge you walk across once. Systems are the road that stays there. Consider two people. Both reached $10,000 in savings at age 27. Person A feels the relief, loosens up, lifestyle expands gradually, a nicer apartment, more frequent dining, subscriptions that accumulate. They never return to strict saving mode. At 37, they have roughly the same savings they had at 27, maybe less. Life got more expensive. They're not irresponsible, they're just not building. Person B pauses when they hit $10,000, sets up a simple framework, automates $400 a month into a low-cost index fund, keeps their lifestyle roughly the same, doesn't dramatically restrict, just structures. At 37, with the historical average market return, that consistent $400 per month has grown into something close to $80,000 to $100,000. The gap between them is not talent, it's not income, it's one decision, made quietly at a moment that felt ordinary. At 47, that gap becomes staggering. Person B is approaching financial independence. Person A is wondering where the years went. This is the compounding effect, and it applies to habits and systems just as powerfully as it applies to money. The decisions made at moments of arrival, at milestones, at raises, at debt payoffs, quietly determine the entire shape of what comes next. Financial freedom rarely arrives in a dramatic moment. It doesn't come from a single investment that changes everything, or a bold risk that pays off perfectly. It doesn't come from extreme discipline, or from watching finance videos until motivation floods through you. It comes, almost always, from a series of quiet decisions, made correctly, at moments that felt ordinary. A milestone reached, a raise received, a debt paid off, a windfall arrived. These are the moments most people celebrate and then slowly undo, but they are also the moments where everything can quietly change. The money you have right now is not the reward for the work you already did. It is the raw material for the life you are still building. Treat it accordingly. Don't let the feeling of arrival become the reason you stop moving.